Okay, so real quick before I get started, I apologize if I sound a little congested. I don't think it's that cold, but I think I am coming down with a cold. But I am self-quarantining, so don't worry about other people. It's probably going to be a shorter episode. I'm just trying to finish off this week 3 project, so I have a little bit of breathing room. So we're going to cover changing the services to a skills section by using a scaffold so that you can change like the icons in like a /skills route in your project. We'll also go over like how to change the portfolio. A lot of these images will work exactly like this masthead image did. So we'll just, you can change the link to something in your public folder or your assets folder, and that'll be similar. And then you can just manually edit this. Or you could use a scaffold for it. It would just require some extra configuration, but I feel like at this point you probably have enough experience to figure this out because this is just going to use an ID for the modal, and you can use the exact same setup that we're using for the skills section up here to configure the modals like that if you want to. And then for the about section, again, that's the same thing. It's just an image in the public folder and a description that you can configure that way, or if you want to scaffold it, you could do it. For down here, we have like this team section, this weird like plugin or plug for companies, and this contact form. It just doesn't seem necessary. So I'll show you how to remove some of this stuff. And then finally, we can cover how to like change the links in your footer and maybe your copyright. And if I remember, the Bootstrap Navbar. But I think that's about it for the plan for this episode. So I'm going to just go ahead and jump into it real quick. The first thing we're going to want to do is come into Views, Layouts, Navbar. And we can just change this Start Bootstrap thing right here. So if we change this to like Deanin, I can save this and then reload. And you see the font changes, so that's taken care of. The next thing we can do is probably change this welcome to our studio stuff. So let's come into our pages index, and wherever we are, let's just do a Control F for welcome to our studio. And we'll just change this to my portfolio. I've got a lot of dev experience. And then we can change this to like check it out. We'll save that, and then we can refresh the page. And then if you click check it out, it should scroll you down to the services section. So now let's change the services section around a little bit. So we'll change this to say skills. Here's my top 3 skills. And we can, let's cut out 2 of these right here. And then for this third one, we can change the descriptor, or we'll change the name to be like Ruby on Rails. We'll change this p tag here to be like, I'm pretty good at it. You could even say something like, I've done 3 projects with it. And then for the icon, we have the shopping cart icon, which is this one right here. So if I just refresh this, you'll see that we changed this around. If you want to change the shopping cart icon, you can see here that they use FA, which is Font Awesome. So if we just go to Google and we search for Font Awesome, I think it actually was trying to autocomplete there. We can come up to either the hamburger up here or just full screen it probably. And then you can search for gem, I guess, because that's probably close enough to a Ruby. So yeah, this gem right here works, and we'll just go ahead and we'll grab this. So if we click start using icon, we really only need this FA gem because we already have the FAS here. So if I just get rid of this FA shopping cart, let me full screen it actually. If I get rid of this FA shopping cart and replace it with this FA gem, I can save this, and then I can come over to the page and refresh, and you'll see that that changed. Now what we can do is we can run a Rails G scaffold skills. We'll give each skill a name for the Ruby on Rails, and that's going to be string by default. We'll give it a description of type text for the I'm pretty good at it part. And then we'll give it an icon that's also of type string. So we have this this little string right here that's the FA gem. We'll just put that in with some Ruby code. So we can go ahead and we can run this. And then while this is running, let's create a helper in the application controller real quick. So we'll call this helper method, and it'll be is_admin, because we don't want everyone to be able to do this, of course. So we'll just say def is admin ? And then we'll say if current _ user and dot admin ? So if that is the case, do nothing else, redirect to the root path. And then we can come into the skills controller, and before we do anything, we'll just say before action is admin ? We can then run a Rails DB : migrate command to migrate the database, and then we can run a Rails S command to start the server. And you can see right there that we do have a scaffolds.scss to deal with, but I'll refresh the server first so that you guys can see what that looks like, just in case there's anyone new here that doesn't understand why I hate this. So you can see now it's changing the look whenever I hover over any links. It also changed the font sizes and stuff. So if we come into assets, style sheets, and scaffolds.scss, we'll just grab the scaffolds.scss and we'll delete permanently. And now if I refresh the page, everything returns somewhat to normal. So now if I try to go to /skills, it's telling us, oh, because we didn't generate the user model, of course. So let's kill the server and let's come down to our config and our gem file. No, our gem file's down here. Wow, you can tell the cold is taking in. So if we just type gem devise and save this, we can then run a bundle install command. Once that installs, we can then run a rails g devise : install command. That'll set up our Devise stuff. You can also do it rails g devise : views if you wanted to configure them. And then once you have those, so let's go ahead and install them real quick. Once you have your Devise views installed, you can then do a rails g devise user command, and we'll give the user an admin : boolean. And then we can do a rails db : migrate command, and then after that runs, we can do a rails s command to start the server again. So now if we refresh the page, once we're confident that this is loaded, it should either error out or redirect us to the root path. It's really 50-50 with how I'm feeling right now. So it looks like that worked. So let's go to /users sign up. And you can see here that this navbar is breaking, so we can address that in a minute. I'll just make this dnat_example.com with the password of password. I'll sign up, and now we should be able to go to /skills. We didn't make our user an admin, so let's go ahead and kill the server and type rails c. And we can do an @user = user.first. And then we can do a @user, and here you should be able to see that they have an admin nil. So let's go ahead and let's change that. So we'll say @user.admin = true, and then @user.save. You could also do like @user.update admin false, and that would update it. So now if I do a @user, you can see that this is set to false. So just a way to type it in one line instead of having to do the @user.save. So now we should be able to exit out of the rails C and type rails S. And you can exit out of the rails C with Control D. So you can start the server. We'll refresh the page, and now if we go to /skills, this should finally work. But you can see that our navbar is looking a little bit buggy. So let's go ahead and let's clean this up. The first thing we can do is we can make sure that if we go to like any of these links, that the navbar always renders correctly. Like if I refresh here. So the reason why it works initially is because we have turbo links, and it's not like doing a refresh there. So from this URL, it'll be fine. But if you go to a new one and refresh and you check the F12 console, it's going to be trying to grab this resource from /skills/start bootstrap agency, whatever. So if we come into like our pages index, any place that you have a like start Bootstrap, you're going to run into problems. Also in the application.html. So if we come in here, we can just add in a slash before all of this stuff to make it run from like the root as opposed to the current path that we're at. So if I save this, you'll see we have 15 errors here. And now we might not even have any. It looks like that fixed it all because everything on the index page isn't, it's only rendering on the index page because we moved the Navbar to its own separate container. And I don't think this has any images in it, so there's nothing in here that's referencing anything. But what we can do to make sure this doesn't appear on these pages, because we really don't want it, unless you do, if you do want it, you could come into like your skills. So this is like your skills form. You could do something like a dot container here. And maybe you can either give it a class or I'll just do it with a style because I'm not going to use this, but you can do like margin hyphen top of 10 EM. Oops, I totally undid that. Container, there we go. So now it's inside of a Bootstrap container and it moves this over. This isn't wrapping around your new skill though. So one thing you would have to do here is grab this and say like on your new page, you would want to throw this around at like everything basically. So if I do this and then I move this down and save, it'll throw everything inside of this below the navbar. But I'm just going to stop the navbar from appearing if I'm on the admin side because I really don't need it there. Like if I want to go back to the main page, I'll just, remove the URL. And the way we can do that is we can come into our application.html.erb and we can just say something like if current, or if controller name, current controller maybe, if current underscore controller is equal to pages, do this, and then there just won't be an else. So I think that works, right? Okay, I just looked it up. It is actually controller name. So let's just change this. So controller underscore name. And we can refresh it. And now you're not going to see that controller anywhere up here. You are going to run into an error here inside of your agency min. So you'd probably want to do a similar check around your style sheets to make sure that they're not running in like bad environments, but it's sort of nitpicking at that point. It's really just to clean up your console. It's not really what the point of this video is. I'm trying to show you how to like configure your skills section. So let's just give this a Ruby on Rails name. We'll give it a description of I'm pretty good at Rails. I've made 3 projects now. And for the icon, if we come into our index.html page and we find the skills section again, this icon here was a FA gem. So if we just grab this, we can paste in FA gem. We'll hit create skill. You can go back to the main page, and if you wanted to style this a bit, you could just come to like Bootstrap for documentation. And then once you're in here, you could search for a table. And then we could just grab like one of these tables real quick. So like maybe this dark one. We'll just grab the whole thing, come over here, and I guess we'll close some of this stuff out. So let's go to our skills index page, skills index. So this is inside of your app, views, skills, index.html.erb. And we'll just get rid of all of this and we'll paste in this table that we have. So now if we refresh the page, we have all of this noise. So we'll make this first one the skills name, the description, and then we can make this last one the icon. So we'll refresh. That changes all that. Let's also make a th scope equals column for the edit link, th, and then we can also copy this for a delete link for each of these. So we'll say delete. Because again, you're going to be here as an admin, so everything that you can do here, only an admin can do. But the next thing we can do is we can get rid of 2 of these TRs, and then we'll say at skills.each, and then dot with underscore index, do, and then we'll say skill, comma, index. And we're just doing this, I'll say %n down here, so that we can change this number right here to be like the index rather than the ID. So we have this row here for this first one. Let's just say this is the index. For this next one, let's say this is the skill.name. Oops, skill.name. This next one will be the skill.description. And this last one can be the skill.icon. And that should give us 3 of these. So we have the FA gem icon, the description, and the name. And we probably want this index to be like +1. That way it doesn't start at 0. So that way we know this is the first skill being shown. And then let's add in a TD for the edit link. So for this we'll say link to edit. And then we'll say edit skill path, and we'll pass in the skill. And then we can close off this Ruby code. And that'll give us an edit link that we can go to. Next we can create the delete link, which is going to look pretty similar to this row. So I'll just copy this. And I'll create another one here, and then I'll full screen this, because this one's going to be a little bit longer. So we change this to delete. This is just the skill, but then we have to pass in a method : delete. Again, if we don't have this, so let me get rid of this, and I save this, your link isn't actually going to do anything. It's just going to be a get link. You do need to actually change this to be comma method : delete. And now if I click this, it'll delete it. You can also add in like a confirmation and, clean everything up. But I'm going to leave that as an exercise for the viewer. Down here, we'll just create a link to new skill. And then we'll say this is the new skill path. So that's being displayed up top. So let's grab this and put it below the table. And we can then go here and we'll create the Ruby on Rails one again. So we'll just say Ruby on Rails. I'm pretty good at it. I've made 3 projects with Rails. And then the icon is a FA-gem, or you could even make it the FA-shopping cart. So now if I come back here, that's one skill. Let's make a second skill. We'll call this like software dev. And we'll just say this is like my day job. And if we come over to Font Awesome, let's just grab another icon here. So let me search for like laptop. We'll click on this first one and we'll grab whatever this icon is. Looks like it's just a FA laptop, so that's pretty good. So, oops. So I guess we have to come over to this tab. We'll paste in the FA laptop. And then we'll create one last skill, and we'll call this like, I don't know, QA testing. It's super important. And then let's look for like, I don't know, is there anything for QA or like quality? If not, we'll just go with a question mark. Okay, so question. Yeah, so let's just go with like this one, I guess. So we'll grab the question, we'll start using the icon. This one's just FA question. I appreciate that these are named so succinctly. So that gives us our 3 icons. Now let's go back to the home page. And our skills only has 1, and it's not the skills we just created, so we have to change this. So let's come over to our page's index path. And what we're going to do in here is we'll full screen this. We have our skills. Let's just mimic this. So we have this div with a row of text center. So we'll say .row.text-center. I'll tab it over. And then inside of this, we do this div column 4. So let me just grab this and paste it in here. And inside here, we'll just say @skills.each do skill. And then we can come down here, I think inside of this one, and we'll say end. This isn't going to work though. We have to come into our pages controller, index action, and say @skills equals skill.all. We're not ordering them by created at, we're just leaving them like that. And you can ignore my Rubocop warnings. I've managed to break that entire thing during the Ruby for Good event, so that's fun. So in our skills for this gem, we can switch this by throwing in some Ruby code, and we'll just say skill.icon. For the name, we can just replace this with skill.name. And for the description, we can just replace this with skill.description. And then we can get rid of this stuff down here. And I think it's this up to here. So now if I save this, we can come over here and refresh. We have our Ruby on Rails, our software dev, and our QA testing all done from our /skills section. So we're just pulling all this from like an admin panel here. Now what you could do for the portfolio, you could do something similar. So you would create like a Rails G scaffold projects, and then you would give each project like a image. So you don't do the image here. You would just make sure you have active storage installed, and then you would do like a Rails active storage storage :install. But I'll leave a link to the card for how to do active storage in the top of the video, so like the top right. I don't know why I just pointed to the top right, like you guys can see me, but so yeah, that's basically all you would have to do for the images, and then you could just do all of this from the back end as well. You would just need to, if we come in here, for the portfolio section, instead of an icon, you would change this ID. So this would be something like the project.modal ID or something. And then you would just set that ID as like a string to be this modal. And this modal, if we come down to the bottom, down here probably, yeah, right here. So this is where it's getting those modals from. So you would just create these in conjunction with it. And I guess I could probably do a video on this if there's any interest. Just let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. If you would, I could always make that video. It just feels like this portfolio project should be your own, so I don't want everyone making the same thing. And I'm also trying not to just repeat making a scaffold 3 times for this video. But yeah, just let me know in the comments. I can always make that video tomorrow or the day after tomorrow if that's something you guys would like to see. So let's just go ahead and let's change the portfolio a little bit, I guess. So we can change like this threads here. So where is that? Threads. Yeah. So we'll just change this to like we'll just say like e-commerce experience. You could say like added Spring to a Rails app. So you could then save this, and then this would update. Yeah, so let's come down to our portfolio, and then you could, e-commerce experience, added Spring to a Rails app. Or Spree, what did I type? Did that say Spring or Spree? Okay. Probably make sure that you call it the right thing on your portfolio. Otherwise, people might think you don't know what you're talking about. So you could do that, and then for this this image, we could come over to like Unsplash again, and let's look for, I don't know, shopping cart or something. This works. Let's grab this. We'll download it. We'll drag it into our public folder, our Unsplash folder, and then we'll just rename this to cart.jpg. And then we can come into our index app views, and for our e-commerce, instead of this image right here, we could just make this unsplash/cart.jpg. And then we can, come over to our portfolio and refresh. So we now have this image. Oh, I guess I put that cart in the wrong one, huh? So let me just grab this and we'll move this cart up. And now let's come down to our portfolio modal, which is down here. So if we click on this, if I refresh the page, if we click on this e-commerce experience one, We would want to change the project name. So right here, we change this to e-commerce or like spree installation. You then have your description where you could say like set up spree for a client with e-commerce requirements. Then you could say like, you know, spree is a Rails gem and I know it well or something. You then have your date. Of course, again, if you were doing all this, you could do like this is your project.date and this is your project.client and this is your project.category or whatever. It's really up to you how you want to do this. It's like it's a trade-off. You know, you have your time spent developing now versus your time spent developing later. And then it's also a question of how much do you want these things to be customizable. So if you just create like a rail, like with the skills section, you're really not going to be changing anything, right? Because it's an icon, it's a title, and then it's just a couple words. But with like your project, you might have multiple images for one project. You might have, you know, like a rich text area for your descriptions for one of them, and then for the other one, you might not. You might have a video for one. So this might be better if you just do it statically and then update it as things happen. Or you could spend like a bit more time on this to, I guess, get it working in a way. Personally, if I had a project setting like this, I would probably just, you know, throw it into some HTML because that time isn't really something that anyone's going to see. Like you could put in all that effort, but then at the end of the day, you could have spent that effort making another project to add into your project list. But that's, again, going to vary depending on who's watching. So let's say we did this in 2020, and we'll say like April. Our client was Google, and the category was, I don't know, capitalism. So we can save that, we'll refresh, and we can come into our e-commerce. And then you can see here that the spree installation, set up spree, did all this stuff, closed the project. So that's pretty cool. Apparently we have one error here for Unsplash. What did I do? Oh, I set the S. Yeah, okay. So this needs to be unsplash/cart.jpg. So save that, refresh. That should get rid of the errors in the console. So there's nothing in the console anymore. And now if I open this, you can see set up spree for a client. Cool. Next is the about section. So let's come to the about section. So this could be about, and then like my timeline or my career timeline or something. Again, you could change all of these images. So we could like search for a clock image or something. I don't know. Let's just download this one. We'll drag it into public again under Unsplash, which is down here. So let's grab this image, drop it under Unsplash, and then F2 to rename it, and we'll just name this time.jpg. Then we can come over to our about section, and where's the image right here? So we would get rid of this, and we would replace this with Unsplash/time.jpg. So if I come over here and I refresh, we should, yeah, okay, so it's going to look weird. And the way you fix this is if you come into here, you give this another class of like about image. So we'll grab this and we'll come into our pages.scss. We'll say dot about image, and we'll give this a width of 100% and a height of 100%. Let's see if that fixes it. It doesn't. So let's go ahead and let's set we'll set a min width and a min height. Like I said, CSS is not my strong suit. And that should force it to fit inside of that. So we have the min width, min height, the width and the height. But if I get rid of those two, we're still good here. So I'll do like a Control F5 just to show you. So that changes your styling there. And then you could just change your description. So like from, I don't know, 2016 to 2017, worked for Rolex. And then you could say, like, I don't know, you stood up for a coworker after a customer was rude and ripped off their watch. You stepped on the watch, or I then stepped on the watch and said, "No way, man, not on my time," or something. And then that should update this, and then you could do something similar for this whole timeline. And then you have your amazing team. So let's come down here and let's just get rid of your team. You're not a team player. This is a solo portfolio. So you have like your clients here. Let's get rid of the clients. You have your contact. We can come back to that in a second. Let's come up to the team section first. Let's get rid of the team as well. Or you could also configure this. I just don't see a need to have it. So you get down here to the contact, and instead of a contact, maybe you just want like, you just want this, so you don't need like a subheading here, but you can just say like email is dean@example.com, and maybe you want this on like the next line, so you just do a BR or something. And this row right here, you just get rid of. So you refresh that. You now have dean@example.com here, and then you have your social media links. So let me just switch that Twitter link. I'll change this to copyright dean@example.com or something. And we'll switch this to 2020. And then for this Twitter link, we'll just make this like we don't even need to make it a link to it. We can just say https twitter.com/deaniocom. And if I refresh this page, I should be able to click on this Twitter icon, and it should take me to my Twitter feed. So I think that's about all the stuff that I wanted to cover here, because we now have basically everything set up. You have your about configured. You could configure your portfolio, your skills section. We changed this. We changed the heading. We have our admin only skills section. I guess you would probably maybe also want a way to log out. So, you could like in your skills section. So if we come over to skills, you could say link to log out, and then destroy user session path method : delete. And then we can come over to /skills, and you'll have your logout button. Maybe you also want to do like a BR so that it's on a new line. So you could click logout. You could even give this a class of button danger. And then maybe the new skill could be like button primary. Class of button primary, right? And then you could also do like a a button group. So let's say button group. We'll just grab this div right here. So it looks like it's just class of button group. So we'll say this should be a .button -group, and then a role equal to group. And then we can get rid of this BR here. And this should clean this up a little bit. You could also do that for the edit and the delete buttons. So if we come up here, let's give the edit a class of button warning. And delete can be a class of button danger again. So yeah, it's small stuff like that, but you can, sort of handle that all how you would want to. I guess you could also, like for this skill icon, you could do this as a, if we come over to our font awesome right here, we can just grab this icon and we can say, around the skill icon, we'll just create this. We'll grab the skill we'll cut this out, and instead of FA question, we'll leave the skill in here. And then let's see if this works how I think it will. Yeah, so now you can actually see what your skill icon is in here. But yeah, it's just a whole bunch of stuff like that. Maybe even add like a link to, you could add your link to your root path. So link to home root path with a class of button dark. Is that one of them? Yeah. So like dark, or maybe like primary. Okay, so that's primary. So maybe success, I think, is another one. Yeah, so you could click this and that would take you to the home page. You could click this, that would log you out and take you to the home page. And then you wouldn't have like a link to log in or a button to log in anywhere, because you don't want users to even like get an inkling that there's a way to log in. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this one. I know it's sort of like anticlimactic because we're not covering every aspect of this, but my thought process was, if I show everyone how to build this, you know, it's a lot like there's this pathfinding tutorial online where they show you how to make like Dijkstra's algorithm and do a pathfinding thing similar to this pathfinding application I have here. So, you know, you like run this, and then there's like 20 different tutorials that show you how to make this pathfinding algorithm. But then everyone has this pathfinding algorithm and it stops being special. So my thought process was, if I just show you how to configure this and not like what a fully configured version of this is, then it'll require you to come up with your own ways for configuring it, and it'll make it your own rather than just a copy of what I've done and what everyone else has done. But yeah, so that's going to do it for me. I'm now going to cut to the outro video. I'll see you there.